Hi, I'm a former higher ed CMO, and I have a confession to make. I think we do an incredible disservice to non-marketers when we ask them to market academic programs when their expertise isn't in marketing. I actually really enjoy marketing academic programs, in part because there's so much low hanging fruit there. There are a lot of program directors and faculty members who are doing work to try to recruit students into their programs, but they haven't been trained on this at all, and they don't have a lot of marketing expertise. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for higher education marketers to make a real difference in their institutions. That's why I'm excited to be bringing on the show Adam Stoltz. He is the Director of Enrollment Marketing at the University of Idaho. And among other things, he's going to be talking about how he bridges the gap between admissions, academic programs, and the marketing office to create an environment that allows for more effective marketing of academic programs. His career has included progressive leadership roles across diverse university settings, public, private, land grant, flagship, and the largest state university in the country. I hope you enjoy this show. You're listening to Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, the podcast where marketing minds in higher ed come to pull back the curtain, spill a little tea, and talk honestly about what it takes to market in this industry. I'm Jaime Hunt, the founder of Solve Higher Ed, author of Heart Over Hype, and a former campus CMO who spent more than 2 decades navigating the weird, wonderful world of higher education marketing. This show is for the strategists, the storytellers, the change agents, and anyone who has ever tried to get Faculty Senate on board with a rebrand. Here we get candid about the challenges and share the ideas that are shaping the future of our field. Sound like your kind of conversation? Then let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Adam. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, excited to join you as well. Thanks for having me.
I know people kind of have a sense of what you do, but I would love to hear a little bit more about your role at the University of Idaho.
So I've been at the University of Idaho, and I've been the Director of Enrollment Marketing since 2019. And so something that's maybe somewhat unique or different than what most of your listeners might know or hear about is my role reports to the Chief Marketing Officer. So I am on the leadership team with our University Communications and Marketing team, but I'm embedded within our Strategic Enrollment Management area. So I'm kind of the bridge and the conduit between central marketing and our enrollment management space. And so with my role, I kind of help oversee our CRM and give advice on what we should be doing within the CRM and how we can manage our campaigns, what's the content look like, and basically the overall communication strategy for enrolling students and getting more students to come to the university. So I think the biggest thing really true for me is we're just trying to be focused on aligning what the students are interested in. And so that might be at a college level or maybe residence life or where am I going to eat, all those big picture topics that students are interested in. And then we're trying to meet that demand by focusing on programs and different other areas of distinction to kind of bring that forward to what the student is really truly interested in.
I think one of the things that you and I have talked about a little bit is this idea of academic program marketing. And I feel like it's one of those nuts that higher ed is continually trying to crack. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the challenge with it is that universities are so decentralized and so siloed that getting colleges sort of on board with academic program marketing, it can be a little bit like herding cats. Like it can be a big
very much challenge.
And I would love to hear what your thoughts are on academic marketing. How do you work that into your strategy? And what do you think causes that disconnect to happen?
Yeah. I think you kind of right off the bat, you kind of talk about the silos that we have at the university and maybe different budget structures even. So, I kind of mentioned earlier, I report to our chief marketing officer. So I have a budget that falls under University Communications and Marketing. But I also have another budget where I have a little bit of access at the Strategic Enrollment Management area. And then as we work with the colleges, we've been trying to partner with colleges in other areas where we've done some college matching. As far as dollars. So if you put in $10,000, we might match you at $10,000. And so a lot of people kind of see marketing as an expense. And I think the one thing that we kind of have to teach others is marketing isn't really an expense. It's more of an opportunity to invest and to help promote. And kind of the big mindset that I have is the rising tide raises all boats. I think that's the biggest thing that I try to talk about all the time is we're in this together. What can we do to help each other? And I think that's kind of the biggest mindset shift that we've seen, or that I've seen since I've been here at the University of Idaho. I think with that opportunity too is we try to go find those small wins. When I first got here, it was pretty siloed, and at times it still can be that way. But now as we meet with more areas and we talk about the systems that we have and we kind of explain the why, people then kind of buy into that why because if I do this, I can do that and I can track things easier. I remember like one of the first things here as we're working with the college, we have a mail room that helps us get mail out and things like that. And they had no idea that existed. And so I went and we were meeting with the college and we have our students, they're licking envelopes. There's about 10,000 of them and they're stuffing them in. And like, how long did that take? Like 3 weeks. And like, there's machines that can do that kind of thing. And there's opportunities where now even we're starting to do a little bit with slate print even more. So like that's even another easier thing that we can do. And so you start talking about those type of things and kind of best practices. And then you get some easy wins like that, where it's like, I can save you a bunch of money and you're going to get your mail out and your communications out within a day rather than 3 or 4 weeks and all the different things that go with that. And so that's, you start getting those easy wins, you start building some more, you kind of get the rapport, you get the trust. And then you start saying, well, now I can correlate that back to, we pulled the list out of Slate. And so now I know how many people enrolled from that mailing and all the different things that kind of come with that. And so you start connecting the dots and you start connecting the people. And then that's kind of where things start to change.
I'm incredibly old. This is like a very much a Gen X and older reference. But when I think about students licking envelopes, I think about that episode of Seinfeld where George's fiance died because there was like a toxin in the envelope licking, and we certainly don't want that to happen to our students.
don't need to do that, and just the time that it takes to do all of that, and there's more efficiencies, and I think that's the other aspect of it all too is how do we make things that more efficient. The other thing too is audience changes really rapidly. So things that we were doing 5 years ago probably aren't really going to work as well nowadays either. And so, that gets into like best practices for SEO, best practices with some of the AI initiatives that are going out there, even email marketing and the campaigns that are there. Sometimes we would work with a college or another area as an example, and the listeners can't see my hands, but they would give us an email that was this long, like 3 or 4 kind of feet long. And so it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Is a 17 and 18-year-old going to read that email? No, they're not. And so, you get the question of, well, they're not even reading my emails. Well, yeah, because it's a dissertation. I don't need to read a dissertation to get a call to action and making sure it's only one call to action to come and visit or come visit with me or come learn more about a program. So it's great that you have all these great, wonderful programs, but you got to kind of entice people to want to find more, not, I'm good. It's too long. I don't want to read. The TLDR syndrome very much exists. And so that you kind of have to balance what you need to say and what you're going to get someone to make a decision on as far as like taking the next steps.
Yeah. Those 3-foot long, like CVS receipt length emails.
Yes.
I often ask people, would you read it? Like, would you read every word of a somewhat cold email, even if you've signed up for, being on the mailing list? You didn't necessarily sign up to be emailed every 3 days, a CVS receipt worth of content.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I know I talk about empathy until I'm blue in the face, but like putting yourselves in the shoes of a 17-year-old that's probably getting these types of communications from 5, 6, 7, 8 different universities. Exactly. They're not going to read all of that.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Yeah. I think the other thing I wanted to kind of mention about how we work with colleges, it's a little bit different now too, is again, prior to my arrival, we were doing things that were more siloed. Now what we're kind of taught our colleges and other areas on campus is help us feed the funnel, help us feed the top of that funnel. So like as an example, we might have a college or a department or whatever going, and they met with 100 students, and then they're hoarding those requests for information cards, and they're not sharing those, or they've gone to a college fair and maybe they didn't get uploaded, and so now we talk about, like, if we're going to do any type of event, either on campus, off campus, let's make sure we set that up. So we want to, if we want to have a pre-event check-in, like where we're going to do all the RSVPs ourselves, we're going to get that into the slate. If you've already had it outside, let's talk about getting those names in, because again, the rising tide raises all boats mindset is, if I get your name from a college or a department or a different area into our CRM, they are now going to get communication from all aspects of the university. So that's going to be about housing and how to live on campus and when to apply and all the things that students are really trying to be interested in. And then we're kind of sharing budgets in that regard too, because last time that I looked, buying a name might be $10, $12, $15 kind of thing. And so it's important, if we've met with a student, that we are tracking all that. We're making sure that we are aware that they've visited campus. So we're not saying like, hey, you should come visit campus. Well, I've already been 15 times. You know that. It really helps us to kind of navigate some of that, and kind of teaches the colleges and others, let's share the information. We'll get you back information as well, and can kind of do all the data and analytics on it in addition to that.
Well, and we know from the umpteen trillion research studies that have looked at this, that college majors are a big decision factor for students. And so having that information from, if they went to a fair or whatever, that the student expressed interest in a particular major, allows us to continue to cultivate them in that way, while also still sort of seeding that content of belonging, and this is why affordability or access or whatever it is that the institutional message is sort of woven together. So it's not either divorced from knowing what the majors are or the academic programs, and it's also not only about the majors and the academic programs. At least in my experience, that's what makes it so rich to work together.
Yeah, it's the balance of everything, because we're trying to do more efforts with parents, as an example. We are trying to show all the values and the whys of why a student would want to be here. But the parents are part of that process too. So we're trying to collect more parent information and having their own communication flow and things like that. But, it's, at the end of the day, we talk about this quite a bit. Students, they want to know, am I going to like it there? Am I going to like the area? Am I going to make friends? Well, I like my major. What am I going to eat? Where am I going to live? Maybe not in that order, but probably pretty close. And then from there, as we get students more and more interested, then we start getting like, well, here, now you can do study abroad. Or maybe you should we have a program called Vandal Ventures, where you can go and do outdoor rec. Since we're such a great area for the outdoors, that entices people to go do more things. And they're like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. And so you're just kind of enticing more and more and more. And so, but we really try to do as much communications as we can to kind of just promote as much as possible. But we also have our recruitment staff, our admissions staff, that are doing more one-to-one communication as well. And, we're doing that in the form of text messaging and calling. And, we've been doing more with Zemi as an example. So we're having that student-to-student experience, kind of talking about and really showcasing what's a day in the life of being a University of Idaho student like. And so that has really been helpful for us as well. And then, again, just coordinating all the things across campus. So if a student wants to learn more about business, we can get you to that particular college. Or if you want to work with engineering, or maybe somewhere in our ag area, we have all of those opportunities.
And there's no sense for the colleges to recreate drip campaigns that already exist from central admissions.
Exactly. So, and what we do now with that, I'm glad you brought that up. So what we do with the colleges was we meet with them very frequently. And the change from where it went to where it was, or where it was to where it is today. When I first started there, we'd have someone from a college or another area be like, hey, you know what? I need help marketing an event. I'm like, all right, well, great. When is it? Next Friday. Okay, well, let's step back. And can't really do a whole lot in a week. Maybe we talk about that a little bit differently. So we've kind of taught, and what I really appreciate about being at a university is that we're in the mindset of teaching others and trying to help educate other people. And so we've kind of taught the colleges and other areas that, hey, let's plan out your events and plan out your marketing and all of your communication months and months in advance. Let's get this into Slate. Let's track this. So we have request forms that kind of go, question 1, what's your campaign? When is it? And, basically it's like, hey, if it's 2 weeks out, that's still not a lot of time. So let's talk months and months in advance. And so we kind of continue to keep having those conversations. And then as we get more colleges on board, then we got more. And then, we've been winning here at the University of Idaho. So we're in the midst of back to back to back to back. I got to say it 4 times to make sure I got that right. Record enrollment. And so what that's helped us is people are kind of coming to us for guidance, and us being the enrollment marketing space where they know that we can be helpful. They know that we're more of a consultant with them. I think we're going to talk about like the order taking, if you will. And it had been like that for a little while, but now it's more like, what's your problem? What are you trying to solve? Let's try to get to figure out how we can do that. And it might be an email campaign. It might be a print. It might be some digital. It might be all of those combinations. But really, what are we trying to do? What are you trying to impact? And, how can we help you? And I think it's the coordination of all those and being more of a partner rather than the order taker that I think is kind of really what sets us apart.
I definitely want to dig into this order taker thing because I feel like I've worked in higher ed for 21 years. This was something we were trying to change at the first institution I worked for in 2004. Like this is like the tale as old as time. And one of my friends and I once got into a debate about whether this was still happening. And her position was, no, we've elevated marketing as a strategic partner. There's a lot more like consultative work happening. And I said, I still hear from people, and I still hear from people now that are still in that order taker, like Kinko's, which I don't think exists anymore, but copy shop similar sort of approach.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's an evergreen topic in higher ed. And I would love to hear, like, from your perspective, how you help to move that away from that dynamic. Like what did you find to be helpful? And I can talk a little bit about what I found to be helpful as well.
Yeah. I think really it's the meeting with people, getting out there and just kind of talking about what we're doing. When I first got here and in other places that I've been, I'm not seeing let's use digital as an example. I'm not seeing your digital, so you must not be doing anything. Okay. So let's talk about that. You're not the target audience. So that's the why. And so you have to explain, like, here's what we're doing. Here's why, to whom, and really kind of explain kind of the mindset of how you're doing things. And again, it goes back to that educational portion where we're in higher education for a reason. We're trying to teach people, and that might be 17 and 18-year-olds, but it might be someone who's been in higher education for 20 years, but never really kind of got into the marketing lane or the enrollment lane or both. It's all about kind of really just, let's talk about the why. The internal marketing, to me, and I think we do a really good job on that, is showing people what we're doing. Which sometimes gets to be really difficult because then everybody's a critic, as you know. But it still kind of creates that open discussion and trust where here's what's going on. Here's where we've noticed trends. Here's where we can go and do the data, the analytic portion of it. And so you take the emotional component out of it. So like, I feel this is better. Well, I feel that's better. Who makes more money? And so you run into I have the bigger title. I was like, I don't know if I really care about that. And candidly, I don't, because it's really all about what's the data show. Let's take that out of the equation. Let's take the emotion out of the equation. Let's just show the data and let's see what we can do. And then, I talk about 2 things a lot with people, left hand and right hand. So it goes to the silo effect. So if I'm over here doing something really, really great, but the right hand doesn't know what's going on over here, and they're doing their own thing, or maybe they're even like spending their budget on something that's very similar, that's not conducive to anyone because we're wasting money, we're wasting resources. So just having the conversation of like, hey, this is what I'm doing over here. Let's talk about this hand over here. Bringing that together, I think that's really, really huge opportunity to bring people together. And again, just that going back to rising tides, I use one example, maybe not necessarily at the college level, but there are some crossover here. When I first got here, we were talking about where the University of Idaho is, and we're in Moscow. Where as I look out the window here, I can walk to Washington. We're that close to the border, and so it's a difficult place to get to. But once you're here, gorgeous campus, beautiful area, wonderful college town. The university is actually older than the state of Idaho, as an example. So we have this kind of classic architecture and then some of our newer buildings that are amazing as well. But one of the first things that I got here at the university was we need a 360 virtual tour. This was in 2019. And we didn't have one. I said, well, we need to have something that kind of showcases the area and the campus and get people to, want to come and visit. And I'm like, no, can't do it. Don't have money, don't have time, don't have resources. So, I heard no 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways. And so what I was able to go do, and this is where I started getting some of those wins, is I went and approached other people. So I knew the 2 areas that I was in, University Communications Marketing and the Enrollment Management area. I said, hey, let's try to partner. Okay, so that's a little bit, it's still not quite enough money. We need more help. Okay. International. So if we go and talk to our international folk, they can have the tour in 5 different languages. They could probably pitch in a little bit. We're getting closer, but not quite. Okay. Who else? So facilities. I went to some of my colleagues in facilities. So like housing and dining and the bookstore. Yeah, we want to be in on that too. Let's do that. And so we found basically a 4-way partnership, got our tour, got it going, 5 different languages. And so it so happened we got it done in February of 2020. So if you remember what happened in March of 2020, I think we all do.
One or two things.
The timing was pretty much impeccable. And so we got that win, and it essentially helped save us during COVID. And so then people kind of realized, that partnership and having more partnership across campus makes more sense. So then some of the colleges were starting to come in on the tour as well. And then we just did more and more and more. And so got those wins, and people saw that, and it kind of had the click of, those guys they're winning over there. I want to be part of that win. And the second point that I really wanted to make earlier was getting people on the winning bandwagon. Once you start winning, people want to be on that winning team, and they're like,
yes,
I see that you're doing something awesome. I want to be a part of that. All right, well, come on over.
Yes.
And there's still going to be the people like, you haven't won enough yet. That's fine.
Right.
I'm not worried about you. At some point, everybody will get on board, or pretty close. And that's kind of where I've kind of seen the colleges have done that with us, all the different areas. So like from Greek housing to residence life to campus dining, all these other areas just start coming on board, and they want to be part of it. And then you kind of correlate it to, like, if we get more enrollment, you get more people to spend at the bookstore, more at going to games, more in housing, more in working with different majors and all the things. And so it's really fun to kind of see the light bulb moment of people like, oh, marketing makes sense, and marketing is an investment. And if I invest some time and effort and coordinate, it's going to be so much easier.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go back and lick envelopes with 8 student workers and take 3 weeks to do it. Those type of things. Like you just start connecting the dots and what marketing can and can't do and how to solve those problems.
Southeast Missouri State University needed to launch more targeted campaigns faster, yet they were bogged down by manual campaign builds, slow approvals, and vendor overload. With Element 451, they eliminated 5 vendor tools and gained marketing superpowers in one platform. They saw a 13% increase in applications, processed applications within 2 days, and achieved 30 to 35% email open rates. The impact was personalized, automated campaigns running at scale, without the drag. Ready to churn your next campaign around in hours, not weeks? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents. I know I've talked about that on this show before, that, so my team, when we wanted to shift our perception of us from order taker to strategic partner, we kind of like shut down for a couple weeks before Christmas to sort of reconfigure how we were operating. And we took down our project request form that had like the menu, and I need a brochure and I need a social post, and literally put one up that was just like, what's your goal? What's your budget? When do you need it by?
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, we don't like this. We want to come up with what we want to do. And we're like, you're going to just have to trust us on this.
Yep.
And we worked first with the MBA program. That was the first person who came in who was like, hey, you did this brochure for me last year. I just want to update some of the text on it. And we said, no, we want to do a full campaign to support your program. What are your enrollment goals? And we went and did a very strategic campaign with a creative brief and the whole 9 yards. And he came to the first meeting, arms crossed, grouchy faced, right?
Yep.
And we ended up, I think we went from, they had maybe 2 or 3 people, at the most 5, ever show up for an info session. Their first info session after we did our campaign had like 26 people in it. And their applications went up 50%, or I think their applications might have gone up even more than 50%, and their acceptance went up 50%. It was wildly successful. And the other folks who were like, well, I'm just not using your form, I'm just going to do stuff myself, were suddenly like, hey, we heard what you were doing for the MBA. Can you help us?
Yes.
Those winning. And so like, be very thoughtful about the first project, because the MBA was really, to me, I was like, we've been doing an abysmal job with how we market the MBA, and he has a need right now, and I know we can crush this.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to absolutely knock this out of the park to get them with they had a small little budget, and we're going to make this work. And it worked. So don't tackle something that's like, we're not going to be able to we're going to move the needle by 2% if we do this. Like, find your first projects and have them be those things where it's like night and day difference.
Yeah.
And that's when you start it was truly like people poking their head into my office. It was right outside the provost's office as they were visiting the provost, going like, hey, how do I get what the MBA had? And suddenly this whole, like, the pitchforks got put down, and it became warm handshakes. And when do I get to meet with your team? And can we meet more often? And it was a complete transformation. And it's a transformation for the students too, to go from an experience that's so disjointed and siloed to something that's like very powerful and effective.
Yeah. We talk about how the students view us as well, quite a bit. One example I remember that I think kind of ties in really well with this is we had a college basically send an email on their own to students. And again, like, I'm right on the border. So we're in Idaho, but Washington is just minutes away. And so college had sent a scholarship email to only one of the states, but people were sharing their experience. And so we got a message from one of our students like, my friend just got a scholarship for doing a thing that they said the college told them to do. I didn't get that. Well, so there's 2 problems there, maybe even more actually. But the first problem was, what email are you talking about, by the way? We have no idea. It's not in our CRM. We don't know what you're talking about. And then 2 was, they didn't really think about their audience, because they were trying to focus on maybe one minute goal, which is great that they're trying to move the needle, but they didn't take in consideration that it might rub a person who's 3 miles from the border, that one got it in one state and one didn't get in the other. And so we were trying to like, what's going on, and all the different things, trying to figure it out. And then in addition to trying to navigate, well, your friend got it, we're not sure why he didn't get it. We'll have to go and figure that out. So there's definitely that aspect. I think one more I want to provide too is we always hear in the news about people who send emails. Like, as an example, we had one of our colleges, not here, but in my previous position that I had, congratulations, you've been accepted to the university. But they sent it to every single denied student. because they didn't
Ooh, ouch.
know how to use the system. They were just using Excel, and then I think when they tried to sort it, they sorted it, but they didn't do like the sort all, and so they sent to a bunch of people who were denied, and so then we didn't. That's not in the system either. So you kind of have to navigate that. So now when we do more emails and things like that, it's more in collaboration with and kind of saying like, here's why you don't do those type of things, and here's why you use and work with us more, is because there's things that we're going to be able to pull the correct list, and we're going to be able to get to the right audience, and all those things that seem super easy, because email's easy supposedly, in everybody's minds, but then we have to talk about like, so now we want to make sure it opens correctly, and we want it to be accessible, and we want it to look good on mobile, and all the things. And so that's another conversation to have with colleges. But again, just those are some of the pitfalls if you are siloed. Is you are sending out, you being a college or you being a program or whatever, you're sending out a communication that others don't know about, and it might be to the wrong audience, and it might not be in the right time, all those things. And so we kind of help that, so we're not stepping on each other's toes, that we know that as a student, they're seeing that they're getting an email or a communication from the university. They don't care about an org chart. They don't care about a silo. They don't care. Like, they just see us in general. The university is sending me something. And so they don't see the difference between, a college, a major, a department, what's a provost, what's a president, like all the things that they just know it's the university. And so those are the things that we try to talk about all the time, and try to put it in the mindset of what's in the best interest for the student.
Yeah. I think that's something that gets lost a lot is we focus on what's best for whoever we are, like what's best for our college,
what's easiest,
best for, yeah. And we don't think about the student. Like you said, they don't care about the org chart. The number of times I've had to tell people, no, I will not reorganize the website around your organizational structure.
Yes.
That like nobody knows that the police report to the chief of staff. They're looking for campus safety information, and they don't.
Yep.
They're not going to look for it under chief of staff. They don't know what a chief of staff is.
Exactly.
Much less
all the acronyms, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Right. I'm curious about if you've ever had to push back on some sort of unrealistic expectation from academic programs. Like, if we work with you, suddenly our programs are going to have 400% growth, or, something like that. And how have you handled that without damaging that delicate trust that you've built?
Yeah, that's always a difficult conversation, because you have to set some realistic expectations as well. And two, because I think sometimes people might say, well, I have a certain amount of dollars to do maybe digital as an example, or maybe to do something that's kind of like, that's not going to get you very far. And so we need to talk about like what kind of expectations would be met with dollar amount or time. And so, a lot of times we're like, well, can we do this and this and that? Well, and sometimes it's no, but it's really more like, that's a future opportunity. So let's talk about, I try to get into people's minds. Sometimes people are like, I want to run, I want to sprint, I want to go do all the hard things. And it's like, you haven't even started crawling yet. So let's slow it down. Let's step 1, step 2, step 3. And then also too, I'm a big believer in kind of reverse engineering. So if you know what your goal is, let's work backwards from that. How do you get to that goal? A coaching mindset, if you will. So it's not like I can just go point A to point B just like that. There's steps in between, and how does that work, and what's feasible and what's capable for both your team and our team, and the combination of the two. So not often that I try to say no, but there are times where we've had to. But at the same time, it's kind of always let's talk about that for a future opportunity, and let's talk about how that would work, and let's talk about some of the fundamentals that we can get done first before we start really going and taking off to the next step. And most people kind of respect that. They start learning more about, like I was just joking earlier, email is really easy to do, right? You just push send and you're good to go. I'm like, okay, well, you got to design it. You got to get the content. You got to get the tracking behind. Well, what's a UTM? Okay, well, that's what this is, and this is how this works, and this is why we do that. I need a landing page now. Okay, well, see, that's another discussion. So we're going to have a landing page and we're going to do this. And so now we need to start tracking the analytics on the web. And then we need to do this, this, and this. And people start looking at it a little bit differently. They're looking at how marketing and enrollment marketing in particular is really an art and it is a science. So there's the component of that again, it's back to teaching people how things work and what's capable and what's not and what's feasible and what's in the time frame. I did jokingly say, like earlier in the conversation, about college coming to us and saying, hey, I want to market an event. When is it? It's in a week. Like, yeah, that's not feasible. So we can help do a couple things. And you might see, I think to your point, you're talking about some colleges might get, or some areas might get like a handful of people to come and visit. Well, if we do it right and we do it programmatically, you're going to experience more people coming to your events or more people to apply or visit or whatever kind of metric you're trying to do. And so it's really just kind of about, okay, again, marketing is more, in my mind, we're problem solvers. So what problem can we solve and what can we help with, and let's talk about that. So I think that's kind of the mindset. And I think once people start to understand the complexities and the capabilities, then they start thinking about it differently. And again, it does go back to those, once you have a few wins too, then people are like, oh, those guys know what they're doing. So maybe you should go work with them a little bit more and kind of trust what they're talking about and trust the process and, try to be more on board. And it's been pretty successful with that.
Yeah. I had a college or a program approach me on a Tuesday and their application deadline was on Friday, and they were panicked because they didn't have the applications and that they were hoping for and hadn't worked with us before. And it was, it's very delicate because it was like, I can't help you at this point. Like nobody is going to see the ad and apply by that. Like it's going to be such a minuscule number of people with the amount of time that we have. But I had to present it as like, oh gosh, I'm so happy that you are coming to us far in advance of your next application deadline, because
Future
now we can see you didn't meet that for this year or for this, the spring term, but it's so great that you thought to come to us this far in advance for the fall term. And I remember she was like, what? Like, no, this is so great. Now we have a good 4 months to build up a campaign for your next application deadline. I'm sure she probably went home and told her spouse or whatever, like, I think I just got completely blown off by this woman. But that's how it's just not possible. But I wanted to make it very clear, like we are here to help. This is how we can help, and we're able to best slot in and do that. If you could design this ideal relationship between marketing, admissions, and the colleges, what would that look like for you? And I will preface that by saying that's honestly, I get a lot of questions about that as a consultant, like, hey, how should we be structured? So I'd love to hear what your ideal is. And my answer is almost always, it depends. And you have to get in and dig in. But what do you think?
I've been in kind of a couple of worlds where, like marketing is kind of embedded with communications and marketing. And I've seen it where it's been embedded within like advancement. And I've seen it where it's been embedded in enrollment and kind of everything in between. And so I think really to me, it's a networked model. It's where the expertise is distributed across the campus. There's the mindset of shared goals. And so, I talk about like enrollment. Enrollment is everyone's job to help at the university. And that could be a college, that could be custodial staff, that could be frontline people answering phones, that could be alumni, all the groups that are interconnected. Because if there's a bad experience or someone has a bad story, or maybe is having a bad day, or one of those type of things, it's going to affect how people see us as a university. So if the campus is kind of looking, it's dirty, trash is everywhere, that's going to make an impact. If I am having a bad web experience, that's going to have an impact. And so, and I think that goes back to, in my mind, where educating people about the smallest impact makes such a huge difference. And so that might be talking to someone about a form on their website, or that might be how they interact with students, or it might be email campaigns they're sending, or just there's so many different opportunities to miss a great opportunity by missing those small things. Central marketing, I think, overlooking, we're always overlooking brand and the tools and the data and the strategy, but part of that, we have to talk about what we're doing and the why. So going to that internal marketing and kind of having that relationship where it's consultative in nature and really trying to be a partner rather, again, we talked about the order taker. That's not a good mindset, because then the people that were taking the orders too, they don't feel empowered to do anything either. And they feel kind of diminished in their roles. And they, some people in that role, maybe 15, 20, 25 years. And it's kind of like, it just kind of diminishes what's going on with that. Colleges and other areas, there's the ones who are the subject experts in their area, but we kind of help tell the authentic stories. And that might be like, we're talking about Zimi as an example. So our influencers, I've gone to different areas of campus. So that's colleges and residence life and Greek and campus dining, the rec center. They all have students who are telling stories already. And so now I could go to them and say, help me, help you, and we'll amplify the story together. And so that kind of, it's still, I wouldn't say it's siloed, but they're in their own area. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, because we're bringing everybody into, like, we're trying to get more enrollment here. Here's how you can help. It might be small. It might actually be pretty big. But all those things kind of add up. And so I think getting those authentic stories out there and sharing that expertise in all the different areas helps us tell a better story. I'm not going to know everything here on campus, but I know people who do. And so I think that's important, where we can connect people with people and connect the dots and those type of things. I also think kind of the shared KPIs, making sure that people know, like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And what's kind of outcome? Like, what did you help with? What did you do? So as we talk about those back-to-back record enrollments, I can go to someone and say, like, you helped do this. Thank you for help doing this, because you made a difference by doing X, Y, and Z. And so then that makes them feel good about their experience too, because they're part of this winning team. And they, maybe before they were still doing the same thing, but they didn't know the why. And so when we talk about the whys, that to me is what's the difference maker. And what's huge is once somebody kind of feels that they're part of the winning team and they're part of doing something bigger, they tend to do more and want to do more. And I think in higher education in general, that's the type of mentality that most of us that work in higher ed have. That we're mostly here for the students. We're mostly here to learn more. We're mostly here to do something bigger. I'm at a land grant flagship campus. So our mission is to help educate the state of Idaho and make a difference in the state of the people that live here. And that mission, I think, is where people kind of live that and breathe that, because they want to do something that's bigger than themselves. And so once you can kind of showcase that they're doing that, and the why and the how and what else they can do, again, that kind of just rises all the tides and rises all the boats together. And I really think that's one of the key factors for some of our success, is just people kind of buying into what we're trying to do and the mentality of this is making a difference.
I love that. I think this has been such a useful and helpful conversation. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me, or email. Adam Stoltz at uidaho.edu is the other way. But either way, definitely welcome conversation. And what I really appreciate about higher education is we can talk to each other, and we're not necessarily competing against each other all the time. Sometimes we are, but what I really like meeting people. I like learning from people. And so if you're out there and you're like, I have a question about something, or you have some ideas for me, I'd love to hear them too. So would love to connect with anyone.
Awesome. I love that. I was just on a call today where we talked about how higher ed marketers seem to approach things with a feeling of abundance, like there's enough for everyone. And so when you have that mentality, you can kind of go into those conversations without feeling like competitors.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that makes this a better industry to work than like retail. Like I'm sure Best Buy and Target don't swap ideas for how to get more customers or whatever.
Yeah.
So I love that. And listeners, I also love hearing from you. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn at Jaime Hunt, JaimeHunt. You can also find me on my website, solvehighered.com, or you can find my book at heartoverhypebook.com. And I would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up on whatever platform you're listening to it on. And until then, let's go bust some silos. Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and contact drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.